Today, we explore one of the deadliest and most consequential chapters in human history, a secret project so classified that entire cities were built in silence. Thousands of people worked without knowing the true purpose of their mission, and a single scientific breakthrough forever changed the destiny of mankind. This is the story of the Manhattan Project, the mission that gave birth to the atomic bomb, ended World War II, and began the nuclear age. But was it humanity's greatest achievement, or its most dangerous mistake? Let's uncover the truth.
It's not just energy, it's time itself split.
What if the most powerful weapon in human history wasn't created to win a war, but to prevent an even greater catastrophe? What if the men who unlocked its unimaginable power spent the rest of their lives questioning whether they had done the right thing? History often remembers the mushroom cloud, the blinding flash, the cities reduced to ruins. But those images reveal only the final chapter of a story that began years earlier, hidden behind locked doors, coded messages, and a level of secrecy so extreme that even the people involved rarely understood what they were building. During the darkest days of World War II, a race unlike any in human history was unfolding. It wasn't fought with tanks charging across battlefields or fighter planes dominating the skies. Instead, it took place inside laboratories, universities, and remote facilities guarded by armed soldiers. The competitors weren't generals or admirals, they were physicists, mathematicians, engineers, and chemists. Their battlefield was science itself, and the prize was nothing less than the power locked. Inside the atom, the project they were about to undertake would become known as the Manhattan Project. It was one of the largest and most expensive secret operations ever organized. At its peak, more than 130,000 people worked on the project across the United States. Entire towns were built from the ground up. Factories the size of small cities operated around the clock. Billions of dollars were spent, yet most workers had no idea what they were helping to create. They simply followed instructions, believing they were contributing to an effort that might shorten the war. Only a small circle of military leaders, government officials, and scientists understood the truth. Their mission was both astonishing and terrifying. To build a weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen, the stakes could not have been higher. By the early 1940s, the world had already descended into chaos. Nations were collapsing. Millions of lives had been lost. Every month, the war grew deadlier, and a terrifying possibility haunted the minds of Allied scientists. What if Nazi Germany reached this scientific breakthrough first? If Adolf Hitler's regime succeeded in building an atomic bomb before the Allies, the consequences were almost impossible to imagine. A single weapon could destroy an entire city in seconds. Governments could be forced to surrender overnight. The balance of power that had defined human civilization for centuries would disappear in a single flash of light. This fear transformed an extraordinary scientific idea into an urgent military mission. What began as a desperate attempt to stay ahead of an enemy would soon become one of the most ambitious engineering projects ever attempted. It would gather some of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century.
God has achieved.
Challenge the limits of human knowledge and force brilliant men to confront questions that had no easy answers. Could humanity control a force as powerful as the atom? Or would it unleash something that could never again be contained?
The answers would forever change warfare, reshape global politics, and cast a shadow over every generation that followed.
Because the Manhattan Project didn't simply end World War II. It opened the door to an entirely new age, an age where civilization gained the power not only to change the world, but to destroy it. And the story of how that happened begins not with an explosion, but with a discovery that convinced a handful of scientists the future of humanity was hanging by a thread. By the late 1930s, the world was slipping toward catastrophe. Across Europe, a new kind of war machine was rising with terrifying speed. Under Adolf Hitler's leadership,
the time for dissent is over. We stand united under one banner, one leader, one destiny.
Nazi Germany had transformed itself from a nation crippled by economic collapse into one of the most powerful military forces the world had ever seen. Entire industries had been redirected toward war. New weapons rolled off assembly lines by the thousands. Millions of soldiers marched beneath the swastika, convinced they were building an empire that would last 1,000 years. Then, on September 1st, 1939, the illusion of peace came to a violent end. German forces stormed across the Polish border, using a revolutionary strategy known as blitzkrieg, lightning war. Instead of the slow, grinding battles that had defined the First World War, German tanks, aircraft, and infantry struck with breathtaking speed and coordination. Within weeks, Poland had fallen. Britain and France declared war on Germany, but there was little they could do to stop what came next. One by one, Europe's defenses collapsed. Denmark surrendered in a matter of hours. Norway soon followed. Then came Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. In the spring of 1940, Germany launched its assault on France, a nation widely believed to possess one of the strongest armies in the world. Many expected the fighting to last for months. Instead, France fell in just 6 weeks. Paris, the city of light, was occupied by German troops. Across Europe, Nazi flags replaced national banners as Hitler tightened his grip over the continent. Millions now lived under occupation, while Britain stood virtually alone against a seemingly unstoppable enemy. To many observers, it appeared that Germany couldn't be defeated, but behind the front lines, another battle was quietly taking shape. It wasn't being fought with bullets or bombs. It was being fought inside laboratories. Years earlier, physicists had uncovered a remarkable truth about the atom. They had learned that splitting the nucleus of certain elements could release an extraordinary amount of energy, millions of times greater than any chemical explosion ever produced. At first, the discovery was celebrated as a scientific breakthrough. Few imagined it could become a weapon, but as Nazi Germany expanded across Europe, that optimism quickly gave way to fear. Many of the world's leading physicists had fled Hitler's regime. Several were Jewish. Others opposed the Nazis and escaped before it was too late. They carried with them something more valuable than money or possessions. They carried knowledge, and they understood something that few military leaders yet realized. If the science behind nuclear fission could be transformed into a weapon, the first nation to succeed would possess a power unlike anything.
The data is conclusive, the chain reaction is sustainable, and the time frame.
We are racing against the clock, gentlemen. It could be weeks.
And the story of how that happened begins not with an explosion, but with a discovery that convinced a handful of scientists the future of humanity was hanging by a thread.
Before the war, it had been one of the world's leading centers for physics. German researchers had already begun investigating uranium, the rare element capable of sustaining a nuclear chain reaction. Although historians now know Germany's nuclear program faced serious scientific and logistical obstacles, the Allies did not have that knowledge at the time. From their perspective, Hitler might already be racing toward the ultimate weapon. That possibility was enough to change everything. Imagine a dictator who had already invaded half of Europe, a leader responsible for unimaginable brutality.
Obscured, vorrücken. We will not tolerate weakness. The nation demands absolute unity, and we will crush all who stand against us.
Imagine that same regime holding a bomb, capable of destroying an entire city with a single explosion.
If the Germans succeed, the war is lost.
Your timelines accelerate.
Thought was almost unbearable. For the scientists watching events unfold, time suddenly became the world's most valuable resource. Every passing month increased the chance that Germany might achieve the impossible. First, the race was no longer about scientific discovery.
If they weaponize the fission, millions could die. We have to get this information to President Roosevelt immediately.
It was about survival. Governments still believed the next decisive battle would be won by armies. The scientists believed the future would be decided in a laboratory, and if they were right, whoever unlocked the power hidden inside the atom first wouldn't just win the war, they would determine the future of civilization itself. That terrifying realization would soon compel a small group of refugee scientists to take an extraordinary step. One,
Too late. The fate of Europe depends on it.
This letter must reach President Roosevelt immediately. If the Germans are successful, we are all doomed.
that would place a letter on the desk of the President of the United States and set in motion the most secret scientific project in history.
They were deeply concerned about Germany's scientific capabilities and Hitler's aggressive and the breakthrough first.
As Nazi Germany tightened its grip on Europe, fear spread far beyond the battlefield. For a small group of refugee scientists who had escaped Hitler's regime, the greatest danger wasn't the German army, it was German science. Many of these men had once worked in the very universities that had made Germany the world's center of physics. They knew the country's laboratories. They knew its researchers. More importantly, they knew what those scientists were capable of. Then, in late 1938, a discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. German chemists had successfully split the atom. The process, known as nuclear fission, revealed something extraordinary. When the nucleus of a uranium atom was divided, it released an enormous amount of energy. Even more astonishing, that reaction could trigger other atoms to split, creating a self-sustaining chain reaction. For decades, the atom had been considered nature's smallest building block. Now it appeared to contain
precisely at 0400 hours.